Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Bull Rush. My name is Mr. Schmooglydorf, and my mic is now in my face, la la la. And I am joined, as always, by Mr. Wolfman on my right, Mr. Noirbot on my left. After his strange 2-week hiatus, how's it going, guys?
Oh, so tired. I took a exactly 24-hour vacation, and boy, that takes it out of you not sleeping like that.
I'm sure it does. I am sure it does.
You
totally have enough coffee
for 2 weeks, but I mean, we've survived. We've handled it.
What?
We figured it out.
What are you talking about? I haven't handled anything at all. I'm just destroying my mic right now, guys. But this week we do have some interesting news to talk about. We've decided to take a little bit more of a chatty, discussion-styled basis. What in the world is going on in the chat? Why is...
I think Tim installed a new bot.
God damn it,
I like
Tim.
how you were like, guys, we're doing a new chatty style freeform thing, unlike the normal weeks when we have strict topics to go over.
Shut up! I don't need you. No, usually we do talk about, like news topics, or we talk about the patch, or we talk about, one random topic or another. But this week we decided to keep it a little bit more towards discussion, to kind of free-ended, ideas on exactly how balance is going with specific respect to certain things. So that's what we're going to be kind of getting into in a little bit, but we did have the news, obviously, this week of the minor patch update that Botiga promised, the 5.1 or CBT 5.1 patch, which is interesting. But, in my opinion, I think it's exactly, it's good to see that they're actually following through on a promise they made before, which was more often smaller patches.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing right now, like right here. It's just, I feel like we've gotten so used to like huge patches and huge changes and like drastic like fluctuations of characters and upgrades and whatever. And it's nicer to see that we have these smaller things and just be like, hey, like they said this, way back in January that smaller patches would be coming, smaller changes, more frequent updates.
Yeah,
I'm glad that it's actually happening. It's really it's
so
small,
nice to
but,
see. And
so...
in addition to that, and we kind of said this a little bit last week with Kusin here, but the things that they changed in the patch are almost direct responses to community feedback. With the changing of the level 10 or reach level 10 fortune cards to experience-based fortune cards, with the changes to Charnock to make the QQ upgrades a little bit less, broken, and just making it a little bit more choice.
Breaking up the synergy some.
Exactly, and then also making Margrave's stun less bullshit. Oh my god. Well, and then also, Based God changing Beckett. And here's the thing, they didn't bring the AoE back. That's the thing. They did not bring the AoE back in the same way that it was before, and this is why I'm so happy. They brought it back in a way that it still works and is still strong, but isn't every bit as broken as it was before. It is different, and it does different things, but it still brings that feel that I liked out of the mechanic back into the game.
Yeah, I don't know, it's an interesting... This patch is interesting to me in the sense that it feels like the right thing to do, and I'm glad that they finally started scaling down to doing, more targeted patches, because I think you can do really large content patches in a game that's more mature and has a decent baseline. I feel like where we're at right now, we have to start doing these small, targeted things, because there's stuff Vidasi was just, disgustingly good with the Flameseeker upgrades, and it's we can't wait for, a month for you to eventually just, all you need to do is, in this case, a relatively small little tweak that, and I haven't played her since the patch, necessarily, but, I'm under the impression that this is, mostly resolved everyone's issues with how she was playing.
I mean, she was ridiculous. When you have...
She's probably still good.
She is still good. But she's got more of her place now.
Yeah, when you have an upgrade that you can get that causes you to unleash flaming fireballs with huge hitboxes, almost no travel time, and do immense base damage and apply a long burn with high tick damage, And no
if you-
cooldown. No cooldown.
No cooldown on it.
Let's add that as well. Like, it's insane. Like, there were so many things that needed to be toned down, and I felt like this was a step in the right direction. I haven't
Oh, yeah,
seen
100%.
it in game yet because I haven't
Gist has been playing
played
it.
in a while.
Gist has been
But-
playing it, and he feels that the nerf, while you definitely feel it, is proper. It is definitely something that they need to do with Vidasi. And I mean, you could almost say the same thing with the change to the Margrave stun as well, with the blunt trauma upgrade, where you gain weakness for using your stun, but it stuns for 2 seconds. You know, for Bone Crusher and Bone Trauma.
Yeah, I was to say Bone Crusher. Yeah. So the interesting thing with all of this, though, and this was actually something I didn't notice until I was updating the hero builder. So there are, like, let's see, looking at this, there's 7 changes in this patch.
Right.
7 documented changes in this patch to, like, actual hero abilities. Of those, 2 of them are documented in the game notes.
Really?
Like, the Margrave stun times, not actually in any of the ability descriptions. The size of Adasi's stuff, not in descriptions. So, and, like,
Yeah.
I think, like, 1 or 2 of the Beckett changes also aren't actually noted in in-game text. Which is one of those, like, I appreciate that they're tweaking these, and it seems like all these tweaks are a good idea. It continues to bother me that it seems like they don't bother putting the text of, like, what's actually going on here into it. It was like, the Margrave ones it's just like, it's like, you know, this upgrade makes the stun last longer, but you're weakened. And it's like, if you read the patch notes, you know how long it is. But, like, if you're just playing the game and you aren't, you know, someone that reads the forums and, like, religiously checks up on patch notes, you're going to have no idea what that number is, or even in this case that anything changed at all.
Yeah.
Which
That's
bothers
something we've
me.
kind of been saying for a while now, though, is that while we appreciate them giving us a little bit more information about, you know, individual skill times, like, you know, a 2-second to a 1.5-second stun, or reducing the range of projectiles by 55% for Vidasi, or stuff like that, it's not. They're telling us outside of the game, and that's the big problem.
Like, half of these, it's like you're already in the files to update this. Like, just go, like, literally with the Margrave one, it's like all you would have to do is add, like, parentheses 1.5.
Yeah,
parentheses.
that's all you'd have to do.
Like, I was tempted to just add it to our builder because it was like, heck, while I'm here, I might as well add that information.
Hey, I guarantee you there'd be so many people who would love that information added to them. And here's the thing.
All kinds of information like that that's been demanded of by the community for so long. Like, how much does this ability slow? How long is this days? How long is this?
Well, so the issue is, the only reason I didn't put it in is because I'm not going to have, like, I don't want to ever have that become obsolete. So, like, right now, all of the text that's on the builder is styles. It is exactly what Motiga admits to there being in the game. It is, you know, from the eternal, like, the actual source of truth. If I start adding information that's, like, anecdotal from patch notes, I'm
Then,
gonna have to
yeah,
maintain it.
exactly.
And I have no way, you know, if they change it in the future and they're just like, you know, if there's another patch note next week that's like, oh, hey, we messed with Margrave and we raised his sun timers, and they don't say what number it's to, I have to remember to go in and delete that number because it's now not right anymore.
Yeah, and the thing is they really need to have somebody. I don't give him as a job for the day. I don't like, or multiple, like, for the week. I don't care how long it takes. Just give him the job of writing down somewhere all of this information and getting it ready to be put into the game in some sense. Go through every person's freaking abilities. Go to Beckett and say, okay, it causes burning. How long is the burning? How much does it take for? How would I write this in as a thing as to where people can read it and understand what it's saying?
Yep.
You know, without having to, like, take ridiculous amounts of time on it. So let's say, you know, instead of it being like, oh, left mouse button cannon sets enemies on fire but have reduced range, it says 3 seconds right now in the hero builder. I'm assuming the burn is for 3 seconds long. How much does it tick for? You could go ahead and say, you know, this much over those 3 seconds. You could just say 3 seconds, comma, flat amount of damage, and we could assume it does that much damage over 3 seconds. Doesn't take too much. Just give him a day job. That's all it would be. Just data entry is all it is.
I don't know. It's potentially longer than that, and I think
Potentially.
there's an argument. I don't know. There's an argument for not putting it in the sense of, yeah, it is time consuming, and yeah, it probably would be someone's entire job to keep up with it. But at the same time, if this is the one time you want to expose that information,
Yeah.
like we can't have. It's hard to have a conversation about balance if you don't know what you're working.
And it's not even so much hard to have a conversation about balance. It's hard to have a conversation about theory crafting. It's hard to have a conversation about creating strategies. You know, we're just guessing on what is strong in the competitive scene. We're going off of our own, you know, personal experience. We're not going off of empirical data. We're saying, oh yeah, Cerberus feels strong, you know, to be able to defend themselves 1v1 against people, so it's hard to backcap on them. But that's just us feeling, you know, that's how it is. We don't have any data to back that up, you know.
Yeah. And if we do have any data, like it's such a
painstaking even to grab.
Like, it's like stuff that happened a long time ago and only a few people know about it. It's like only a few people know that Margrave has a 25 flat armor. Like,
yeah.
In the front.
Oh yeah, no,
like,
armor and like we're not even.
A lot of people know that. It's just like he and HK have the most armor in the game, and
there's even misinformation going out there as well, because SoFetch did his video on, I think it was like Strider versus Dominator or something, and he put in armor values in there which are incorrect based off of what we know. And he's and here's the thing, we can't know unless they tell us, and he's just going off of experimentation. He's going and saying, okay, this is how it's reacting to these different situations, so therefore I'm assuming this. It's not based off of any actual information, and that's the problem. Now we have misinformation out there. We have people guessing. I think it's always been, but it should definitely be in Motiga's best interest to just put that information out there. Who are you hurting? That's the argument, you know. And
it's such a weird setup, and
it really is
so many ways. I don't know. I want to see something happen. I don't think it will.
Yeah, and you know, if it happens and when it happens, everyone's gonna be happy. You know, you could guarantee it. But for right now, I'm happy enough just to see the fact that they are actually making updates to the game like this, where they are telling us the changes they're making, even down to specific data, like, oh, we changed this from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds, we reduced the range on this by, you know, actual amounts, you know, it's telling us these things. You know, I'm fine with that. I like that. But it'd be nice to have a little bit more.
In the right direction.
Yes.
Is the big thing. And actually, like, on the side, the adjustments to the fortune cards points to, like, I'm actually super excited that they're continuing to keep up with changes to the progression systems. Like,
well, and I mean, I guess it's to be expected at this point as well.
Sure.
You know, they're still testing it.
I appreciate that, like, they managed to adjust this relatively quickly, and they seem to be kind of on top of it. And like, I feel like I didn't notice when this happened, but it's probably, like, it seems like it was relatively recently that they moved to not having talents be unblockable anymore.
Oh yeah, that was the thing. It kind of was since like the beginning. They when they released everything, the talents, like, you could see in the store, you could buy talents in some places, and when the first couple of patches went out, it was that way. You'd have your base 2 talents, and that was it. And then they got rid of that for a while, but the infrastructure for it's still there. And here's the thing, I don't think there's anybody in the game right now who even wants that to be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference between, like, there's a sense of progression there, but it doesn't really feel like it's validated, only because of the fact that it currently feels like everything else costs too much. Like, over half of the roster costs 12,000 crowns just to unlock the hero to play, and then you have to learn how to play that hero. Imagine if you had to unlock the hero, and then you had to play more games to get all of the upgrades for that hero, and then you can start working on.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing.
I mean,
I did the math on my experience. If I hadn't been given crowns from Nanoman to unlock everything, I would have had to grind, and this is still assuming that I'm getting infinite amounts of gems by purchasing a lot of them, so I can continue getting fortune cards and getting the experience and whatnot from that. But if I didn't have all those crowns, it would still take me at least to level 25 or 26 just to unlock all the heroes. Never mind the creatures, never mind any of that stuff. And that was also saying, hey, look, I can play any of these heroes I want, so if I get a hero-specific card, I can just play that hero right now. So I would assume that it would take me even longer to unlock just all the heroes, at least to level 30. And that's not a small amount of time. I mean, Wolfie, we had the information came out when he got to level 40 in game. You had 500 and some odd games played. Like, that is how many games it took for him to get to level 40. Are you kidding me? That is a lot amount of time. It's a ridiculous amount of time to be able to do that. So of course people are feeling like it takes too much crowns to do stuff right now. And I think if they added that, and I think if they added the talents into where you have to buy the talents too, the entire progression system would just become a pain in the ass. I don't think there'd be anybody who would want to do that.
It becomes something less of you're feeling like you're working towards that to like a chore just to become better.
Not even a chore to become better, a chore to be able to play the game.
Yeah,
because that's what it is. The talents are a core basic of the game. Like,
because then you're going back to like old mechanics of like World of Warcraft. It's like I can't do PvP because I don't have any PvP gear, but I have to do PvP or I can't get the currency to buy PvP gear. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like,
or
it's
like, hey, look, I can't play this character to the full level of its ability because I don't have the talents yet that I can do that with. So now here's the part on their side is like, if they're gonna do that, they have to balance out. Okay, what are your 2 basic talents that you're gonna get for every single thing, and are they the ones that everyone tends to choose? And if that's the case, then why would you ever unlock talents in the first place? So either you make talent unlocking completely worthless, or you make it such a chore that you ruin the player experience. I don't think anybody wants to do that. There's no reason to have talents unlockable.
Yeah, I mean, it would also help if a lot of the heroes weren't so expensive.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's a matter of what they, like, the studio has interpreted as heroes that have higher skill cap. So they're more expensive because they're not tailored to newer players.
Since when is HK a high skill cap? Well,
that's an entirely separate opinion based on every person's idea.
I mean,
what is considered
playing against rando people playing HK. I guess maybe there's a little bit of learning there involved in knowing that you can unfortify it anytime you feel like, so you can move. When 4 people are attacking you, anybody cough.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that it's just a lot of time. Like it just takes a lot of time. Like I feel the same as Shmoo right now. Like if I wasn't given crowns, I feel like there would still be stuff that I'd have to work to get. If
those
talents
it would just be so much more of a chore.
Just to put it this way, I didn't, like, because I wasn't an active streamer, I didn't get, like, a crown dump at any point. Well, until recently, for some reason. But, yeah.
Hashtag Baz.
Yeah, I guess.
Probably Baz.
And so, like, I got to, I think, level 10, and I unlocked 1 creature.
Yeah.
And, like, had almost had enough for 1 character.
Yeah.
It's like, are really? Like,
well, and okay.
You think about, like,
here's the thing. You're also not getting the updates or the updates to the fortune cards where new accounts get the tutorial fortune cards. None of us got those. None of the older players got those. It was all just when you created a new account.
I wonder if we will after the reset.
We better. Okay, I never got a chance to tutorialize that. I never got a chance to test that at all. Like, I kind of wanted that.
Technically, it is an account wipe, but our accounts have been in the board for like ever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't know. It would make sense, and it almost makes me. And I know this is bad thing to do, but it almost makes me want to get a second Microsoft account just so I can test that. I almost want a second Microsoft account to do that.
Yeah, just to like see like if they work or whatever, and see how much that actually gives you.
I think on the side, like, one of the interesting things just in terms of progression systems, this is a little obtuse, but, like, so having played the Overwatch beta some, like, that I feel like that is, to some extent, the best combination of grind combined with not grind, in the sense that it's a grind if... So, essentially, the way Overwatch works is every time your account levels up, you get a box that gives you 5 things. So, it ranges from avatars, emotes, sprays, skins, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And you could also buy them for, I don't know, some amount of money. I don't actually think you can buy them in beta, but it's... Like, that seems like it's the right combination of, like, whereas, like, I have all the characters, I can play the game in full, but if I want, like, that one skin I really want, I'm gonna have to grind it out for it. Whereas, if I'm willing to just be like, I don't know, I'll get something eventually, I can just kind of, you know, camp out and wait and eventually get something I want.
Yeah,
okay. I mean, Nanaman talks all the time with us saying that he's working on more progression stuff, and we all know that that is stuff in the process.
Yeah.
It becomes a matter of how much will it actually be, and does it feel like it's worth doing the grind just to play it? Because like Gatotech said, you know, they have to include a grind if they want to include microtransactions and, you know, that kind of stuff. If they want to have that kind of stuff, there needs to feel like there's an award or a reward for putting all the time you put into the game, whether or not you spend money on it or not.
Yeah, and, you know, I think that is, you know, what he said is 100% valid, that right now there doesn't feel like there's too much of a gratification. We actually had that conversation in a dev chat at some point with somebody, I don't remember who, but somebody said that to Nanaman, where right now it doesn't feel like us grinding for fortune cards or anything, you know, feels like for any reason. And a lot of that's because a lot of us, you know, have all of the creatures and everything, so we're just doing the grind for numbers, you know, and even if we did, you know, even if we didn't have all of that unlocked, it wouldn't even necessarily be a grind for the creatures or a grind for the heroes or any of that. It would still feel like the grind for grind's sake. But it's hard to get rid of that in a game that involves microtransactions, because the getting rid of the grind and unlocking everything is your reward. So, you know, take League of Legends for example, because this is kind of the model that they're kind of going towards, where it's like, with experience of them, getting to level 30 means that you could do a lot of things playing in ranked. We don't have a ranked queue, so we're not grinding to get to ranked queue.
I mean,
we don't have...
been described is that we are probably eventually going to end up in a system where there's, you know, some sort of, you get to X level before you can, you know, join a guild,
a ranked queue, or join a queue, guild or whatever,
and then whatever that system ends up being.
Exactly, and then, you know, other things include, you could use level 3 masteries in there. We don't have a mastery system in this game. We don't. They tried to do that. That's what the talents thing kind of was. And I would be fine if the grind was like you get to different levels and it automatically unlocks talents for you instead of you have to buy them. I'd be fine if it was tied that way.
Of the Storm system, really.
Yeah, and I would be fine with it that way, because then that gives a little bit more of a learning curve. You give talents to the people, you know, that are basic talents that aren't overly complicated, so you don't make the Dominator perk, you know, the automatic unlocked one that you could choose. No, it gives you Shredder. You get 30% armor penetration, great. Or you get, you know, the damage and the stamina, or the damage and the health ones for level 9, you know, hero talents and whatnot. And give the basic ones at first, and then as you gain levels, you unlock talents, you know, and that would make more sense.
My issue with that, and like, I like it in theory, my issue is, and this is kind of a perpetual thing that I can play about, and we're actually seeing it kind of right now, is any sort of, you unlock, like, unlocking characters is one thing, but unlocking, like, things within a character, like global level stuff, ends up becoming a problem, because if the balance isn't exactly perfect, you have a situation where, oh good, I unlocked this character, oh, I don't have their good level 3 perk, so they're worthless. And which is something that, like, you run into with, like, Heroes of the Storm, where, like, every character has two ultimates, and usually one of them is better than the other, fairly reliably. And sometimes that's the one you get at level 1, and sometimes it's the one you get at level 5. And it's the one you get at level 5, you spend your first 5 levels of that character being like, and here's my shitty ultimate. And I feel like you run into that even right now, where, like, the big thing is like, okay, we start off, here's your 3 creatures, and it's like, yeah, but you really want Storm Drake.
Yeah.
And it's like there's no way to deal with the fact that it's like inevitably the like correct meta pick is either if the correct meta pick is something that you already get for free, then there's no reason to buy anything else. If the correct meta pick isn't something you get for free, then you're penalizing all the new players.
Yeah, and that becomes a whole situation on its own based on, you know, how much focus do you get, like how much focus does each hero generate in game? Like, you know, obviously the Stormdrake is really powerful. It costs 3 focus to summon. It's a big creature, has a lot of health, a lot of damage.
Yep.
It makes sense that it's more powerful than the other creatures, but it doesn't feel like you're getting any benefit from the smaller creatures just because they are weaker. But at the same time, they should be weaker because they cost less focus. They summon faster. You know, it's a whole number of things that a lot of people like overlook.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting the fact that for a lot of the creatures we actually do have very solid numbers on, maybe not like things like armor, but we do have like health. And we have summon times, we have focus costs, you know, there's
on some of them we have for the bloomers we have how much they heal for is out there, you know, that's fairly easy to get. And you know,
it's hard to summon like it's hard to balance creatures when I feel like a lot of them do the same amount of things, but at the same time there's this whole idea of a lot of characters can generate focus so quickly that they don't want to use it in every fight, but at the same time, like, you want to use it in fight, but it doesn't feel like it's worth it because you're losing that focus that you just spent so long trying to generate for no purpose other than to summon a big creature that may or may not even be touched in the later point of the game.
Yeah, well, and there's the opposite of that too, is like, you know, heroes that just generate focus so quickly they don't know what to do with it, and in some cases like Zenobia, because I coughed that out, her focus just doesn't feel like it fits in any team fight unless you're trying to run away or unless you're trying to defend a guardian or defend a creature, like, and even when defending a creature you're not really doing much there.
I don't really agree with that in the sense that like Zenobia's focus kind of fundamentally is a slightly better version of Bard's focus from League.
I disagree. That it's not necessarily better, simply because even though it's instant,
it doesn't trap your people.
It doesn't trap your people, but here's the thing, and I don't know if this is a bug, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but dots still affect them damage-wise when they're inside of that, and
bug.
Allies can heal people affected by Zenobia's thing. So if there's a Vidasi that is not affected by Zenobia's focus, but 3 enemy players are, they could get healed up, so you're basically doing something completely counterintuitive. You're giving them the ability to get healed without doing any damage to them in that situation.
I'm pretty sure those are both
bugs, but things that can happen. And in a fight, there's almost no reason to use Zenobia's focus because you're basically just prolonging the fight, and it's not even long enough for your health regeneration to pop back in.
Yeah,
so it's better to save it, you know, in that case.
It's hard to see what the purpose of the focus is, because it can generate really quickly and there's no reason to use it early game because you want to get those creatures up. Like, upgrading your creatures is so important. I wish that more people realize that. Yeah. But in a fight, it's hard to determine exactly what it does because it has that delay. It doesn't exactly have the best range in the world, and it's almost always used defensively just for Zenobia instead of like either engaging a fight and saying like, okay, I've got these like 3 people trapped, like, team, come over here and let's jump on them before they get out of here. It's always like, oh shit, I have a Taito on me, better use this and reposition myself, which works, but there's so many other situations that you can use the focus, and even then, like, if you find one of those situations, it's almost completely rare, and it feels like the focus becomes nothing more than just to upgrade creatures. And since we have a limitation of 1 adult creature per character, you know,
or per creature,
after a while, if Zenobia uses all 3 of her adult creatures and like 2 of them die, like, she just spent so much time doing practically nothing because everything that she worked for was just destroyed. So it becomes a matter of should the focus be more beneficial in a fight, or should the focus generate slower so it doesn't feel like you're getting a faster reward for those creatures?
Honestly, and I don't know what anybody else thinks on this. I don't know if this should be a thing, but to me, it feels right that she summons, or she gets focused faster and then doesn't have as much of a prolific use for it in fights. That she doesn't have the use to use it in all of the fights, and in fact almost always shouldn't be using it in fights, because now she's probably the only hero in the game right now with this situation where she generates focus purely because she's probably going to be summoning all of your creatures, and she is a support role. I honestly feel that should be the case for all of the support role heroes. For maybe not so much for Sven, but for Vidasi, she should get focus faster, so that way she can and change her focus around is where she doesn't become invincible. That would be silly, but it's so that she could go ahead and.
You know what would be super cool, and I'm going to continue to ask for this. I think it would be fantastic if Griselma had her focus was just that she summons creatures that are like slightly more powerful. Like, because she's essentially a summoner, that like she doesn't get a focus, she just, her focus is her summoned creatures are better in some way.
Maybe her focus like augments a hand so that it like does more
No, just like her focus doesn't have an active. It's just a passive that when she spends focus to upgrade to an adult creature, it like gets a buff of some variety.
Yeah, that would be interesting, but I think there would be a lot of people in the competitive community who would say, now Griselma's fucking worthless.
I don't know.
I wouldn't even say that. I think that would make her overpowered. It would depend on
it depends on the buff, yeah.
So
okay, maybe.
On the other side, like, can we just talk about the fact that like creature balance is kind of absurd right now, in the sense that like half of like bloomers are amazing.
I was before,
and then like pretty much Cyclopses are completely worthless.
Almost completely worthless. There are a lot of situations when Cyclops are really good for where their walls are, but they're only really good on 1 point per map. If you think about that, with the exception of Ghost Reef, where there isn't even a 100% good place to have a wall on that map.
You can't add in the factor of shitty AI and
ignore that.
Missions. We're running strictly on functionality and stats of the creatures. That's what we need to do.
I mean, stats are irrelevant if they kill themselves 50% of the time.
Imagine we're in a perfect world where creatures aren't suicidal maniacs. I mean, that would be
Cyclopses would still be worthless because, like we said, on almost all of and pretty much all of the maps, there's only one place that their walls are really good. I know we on Ghost Reef will put Cyclops at the pool's location just because that blocks off that upper area and forces them to kind of go down towards the creature or towards center, which means they're funneled towards a smaller area that they can go for push. But in almost every case that doesn't matter because you can't stop them from getting the push because it's such a short distance anyway, so you're really just meaning that we know where they're going, or you can see how many people are going to the push easier. Like, it's not like you're going to stop them from getting there, and if you upgrade to an adult, like if you use the Yeti Cyclops, which is actually a really strong choice because of what it can do in a lot of places, if you put that on intake, that's actually a really good slot because now you're blocking off the wall from ramp, which is really nice, and then you put the frost pool on the arch below, so now they either have to go through the frost pool to get into your intake or go all the way around to get into your intake.
But I guess the question is, are any of these better than, like,
putting a bloomer there?
Yeah, like...
Well, and that kind of goes into, strategy involving those. We feel, at least Outlandish, I'm speaking for our competitive team, we feel that bloomers themselves create an interesting situation where on their own, they are the weakest creature in the game. They're the easiest to kill for any individual player. It can be backcapped really easily. So by having more than one bloomer on the map, you're spreading your rotation points so thin, because you almost always, if they're going to be attacking that bloomer and you don't want it to die, or don't want to be losing this push because you didn't respond to an enemy team's actions, you have to rotate to that. and
Yeah.
defend it. So if you have more than one of them out on the field, obviously you're going to be losing something. But if you're on them, bloomers are fucking great. Because it's so easy to defend upon if it's on the right place, which is why on Ghost Reef, people have, found out Cavern is probably the best place for a bloomer, because it's the easiest point to defend, because there's only 2 ways into there, and there's a lot of defensive verticality there, which allows for a lot of proper defensive play.
Range can't attack it unless they're in there.
Yeah, exactly. They have to be in there.
They have to be almost point blank.
Which is why we're seeing people, especially with the last update to the bloomers, where bloomers heal for less on their outer pools than on their inner pool. We're seeing people less and less play with the intake bloomer, simply because why would you now? Like, you're not gaining anything out of that. And instead playing with the Cavern bloomer, because now you're opening up so much more for rotations-wise. And this is what we're seeing, is creature balance is becoming so much more closely tied with strategy. And it always was. But I feel like even the casual community is starting to realize how much you have to strategize with your creatures.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. Like, that's a really good thing.
That's exactly what's intended.
I think that's a really good thing. I think that's exactly what we wanted. But at the same time, I don't want the balance of the creatures to be a reflection of what is the flavor of the month in creature placements.
Yeah, and we also don't want it to turn into the creatures of the slave to the map.
Yeah, like, creatures.
Well, that's gonna
should
happen.
be beneficial.
Yeah.
Like, anytime you've got a set of creatures, like, all of the creatures became slaves to the map when they had map-related effects.
Yeah.
Like, if they were all just, like, back in the day when they were just, like, buff towers, where it was, like, a bloomer didn't really have healing pools, it just gave, an aura.
An area of effect regen, yeah.
Yeah, like, when it was just, like, they were all just, like, aura machines, then it was, like, sure, it doesn't matter. You just, okay, I want, like, we're behind, okay, I want 2 Cyclopses for the defense. Or
Hashtag PAX South 1 days, dude.
And so, like, I think now that they actually have map effects, they're always going to be flavor of the month on some map or some other map, just because that's how it, like, has to work.
Almost exclusively has to work.
That's not, like, what I'm saying is that's not a bad thing. It's more of the line of the fact that we don't want a creature to feel useless just because we're on a specific map. Every creature should be able to defend their own, themselves, and they can't. There's so many people that are just like, the Cyclops, the Mountain Cyclops is worthless. Like, there's no point to use the Mountain Cyclops.
Simply because it's a 1 extra focus.
That's a tier 2 summon. It should do something. Like,
to be fair, that's partially because it suicides itself.
Well, it's also because it's a tier 2 summon that doesn't give too much more bonuses over using something like a Yeti Cyclops, or using a tier 1 Cerberus Majoris, or using something like that. Like, tier 2, yes, you're saving 1 more focus, but realistically speaking, almost nobody is saving up for a tier 2 focus. You just realize you have one.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing that's kind of weird about the whole post system. I feel like it would almost be, I don't know, as like another weird side thing, I feel like there's some argument to be made for allowing you to upgrade creatures without going to them.
Yeah, there's some argument to be made there. I don't know if...
Because, like, I feel like that's always the problem, is there's no easy way to, like...
Especially
on the larger maps. On the larger maps, you end up in a position where it's like you don't upgrade your back creatures until you die. And if you die, you are probably in a fight, and then you probably spent your focus. So you always have the, like... Sometimes it's better to, like, not use your focus and lose the fight so you can go back and upgrade your creatures, which just creates, like, perverse incentives.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'd like to think that the point of going back to the creatures to upgrade them is because you want to defend them while they're upgrading. They're completely vulnerable. They start with less health.
No, but like we're talking about something like Sanctum Falls, like upgrading your market or stones or whatever it's called, the back point near your Guardian Pit. Like, unless the other team is literally pushing, there is no way they're going to be able to take that. Like, you don't have to defend that.
Oh my god, this whole conversation is making me think of a second game mode that they can do that plays the same as the first one but has more strategy involved. But go on. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. We're going to see that in the future, guys. Don't worry. I will write an article for GGU.
I think that is like, I don't know. It's again like how you play the game is so beholden to the specific map.
Yeah.
And the maps play so drastically different.
And it's not even so much that they play so drastically different, even. It's just that they're beholden to the map, and that the maps almost guarantee what you have to do and where. Like, and I mean,
Which
a little
isn't
bit of that's going
necessarily
to
bad.
that's not necessarily bad, and a little bit of that's evolving, you know, into the future. Like we used to see, for example, at Sirens when it first came out, the big fights were always over ship. Who can summon ship, and how long can they hold it? You know, and all the fights would happen over there and everything. What we're seeing now, Big does this. Arc does this, Outlandish is going to be doing this, Renegades does this. All of the major teams do not summon ship. Period.
Yeah.
They never summon ship. They always fight and rotate over barge. Why? Because ship is just so easy to kill, there's no reason to summon it. And if we finally get a creature that, you know, can help us hold that point stronger, like the old Infernals used to be able to do, if we remember those things, where it reduced the DPS everyone would do around it by 30%. Are you kidding me? No one, that would be
I'm
the...
sorry, you wanted a raid boss?
Yeah, it was. I remember the old horror stories of somebody who had upgraded, you know, had put an upgraded Infernal on a point, and they 5-man tried to kill this thing, and it killed all 5 of them.
Yeah, no, it
Like, I mean, it was broken,
itself.
but like the idea is still
I
there,
always
where
felt
it
that.
made it difficult to actually take that point, you know, in a point that isn't exactly closed off and easily defendable. Because ship isn't, intake isn't, you know, river isn't. There are points that are very difficult to defend upon, you know, and they're built that way on purpose. If you want to think about that, ship is built to be difficult to defend upon because that's where your conflict is. You want to defend on that point. You want to fight that point. So if we get a creature that can make it easier to defend on a point where the geometry makes it difficult, then we're going to have some interesting things going on. You know, that's going to be interesting.
I proposed this idea a long time ago, whereas if, like, I think that there should be center points on every map, and I'm not saying like intake for for Ghost Reef, like those are still specific sides. Like there's no true
Yeah.
middle point but I
On
think
Ghost
that there
Reef.
should be.
There sort of is on, you know, on Sanctum Falls with both of
there
them.
is-
You know, there's
there
definitely,
is on
it's
Sanctum.
River and Altar. There sort of is on Sirens with Ship, but people are trying to get away from that.
Yeah, but the thing that I suggested was that there should be a middle point on every map, at least one, and it shouldn't be a summon point. It should just be a point where orbs spawn, and you fight in those points.
For the orb.
Whoever wins the fight captures the orb. So it gives it this whole sense of, it doesn't feel like if you're on the losing side there's this impending doom because they're defending one point and this other point has an adult creature that for whatever reason you can't kill, or they get there fast enough to help defend it. Like, that's, you know, on Sanctum Falls, that's 2 points where they're capturing orbs almost eminently because they can't kill the creature. You know, it was just a suggestion that I thought of. It would make it a lot more sense of balance.
And speaking of like capturing points and creatures, like one of the other things, and this kind of gets back to like one of my like perennial complaints with the way the game's been running right now, is that it feels like there's a lot of like left hand not talking to the right hand kind of thing. Like it feels like the team that's balancing creatures didn't talk to the team that's doing power orbs.
Or didn't talk
Because
to the
that
team
would-
that was making the maps.
Yeah, and yeah, on down the line. But like the big thing is like half of the reason you do bloomers is because bloomers don't abandon their power orbs. Whereas
Adult
like,
bloomers, yeah.
yeah, adult bloomers. Whereas like adult cyclopses are like, hey, there's someone over there. Screw
Lunge,
it, I'm
yep.
gone. And like you can capture the entire orb. Like even if they don't lunge off a cliff and die, like you can just bait them into lunging sideways and capture the entire orb before they even bother to come back and try to kill you.
Yeah,
And
and
they are completely worthless for defending our. Well, same with Drakes. All
Nope.
it did was make Drakes. No, Drakes move now.
no, oh, sorry, that's what you were saying. That's what you were saying.
That's why bloomers. Half of why bloomers and Drakes are good now is because they're just
They
like,
don't
no,
move
I'm
off the
sitting
point."
on this orb. You have to kill like.
Well, and that's how
you're
they
gonna have to
always
figure out how to-
were, you know. Storm Drakes were
Yeah.
always like that.
But
Fire Drakes were
no,
always
they've
like that.
Been like that.
Yeah,
But the thing
that's-
was, we
that's what-
instituted
that's
the
Craig's
power
point.
orb. We instituted the power orb system with no mind to the fact that
Yeah.
this suddenly made the already 2 best creatures even better.
Yeah,
and even
because they
more
don't have to
essential.
move. They don't have to move.
Yeah.
Like, you can
Like
still
Cerberus
you
and
can
Cyclops
still channel
already
the capture.
sucked.
I still go by the idea that the passive power system is still valid in a sense. It should be a lot weaker than it was, but it should still be a thing. Passive power should still be generated, and then keep power orbs and do what Wolfie said. Have it be at center points or different points across the map. You know, have them be one of them be at the kind of like half bridge thing in the middle of the river on Sanctum Falls, that place where you kind of have to jump over. Put one power orb there. Put one underneath the altar area. Put one somewhere else. Like, put them in places that they spawn randomly, in these places where people can get to and people can fight over them, and have it like that, rather than being, you know, oh hey, look, you just grab power orbs now and you're slave to what your creatures are doing and your AI is doing, meaning that pretty much if you don't have a creature that won't jump off the point, you're going to have to actively defend that if they decide to go for that power orb.
I think I actually just thought of something else, and I think would also be really cool. Instead of like capturing, like, you still capture the orb in a sense, but instead of it just being like a captured channel time and then boom, you get all the power, like,
Have it tick?
you capture the orb, not really tick, but it's more like you're absorbing the power orb. Like, the orb has a set amount of power that it generates, and as you channel, you absorb that power. And if you're disrupted, like, you still have that power, but you don't capture the entire orb, and then someone else can like capture the rest of it.
Oh, so
the
like it
creature
spawns with like 20 power worth.
Yeah.
And then
And,
you capture 10 of it, and then somebody knocks you off, but then you get back to it and capture another
Well,
5.
No, it's just like it would be like everything that is channeling it takes like 1 power per second. So the creature gets 1 power, can like get 1 power per second, and like, you know, if I'm here, I can get 1 power per second, and if an enemy's here, they can get 1. They're channeling it.
Yeah, I don't even think it necessarily even be a channel. I think they could just like stand on it.
Stand in the
no,
area.
Then you get the thing is like, how do you stop them, right? Like if the other team, they could just sit all 5 people next to your point and just be like, what? You know, like if they're close to a push, they can just like run everyone in and just stand on top of your point and steal all the power in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, at that point it needs to kind of turn into almost like the Dominion thing, where if there's multiple people there at it, no one is grabbing anything until there's all of one team on it. Yeah, if it's contested, nobody grabs off of it. Instead, it's, you know, all of that.
Like,
but
maybe creatures shouldn't be able to count for contesting it. And then to go by, all of this discussion feels like we just had more discussion about that mythical system that we're coming up with than the thought that was put into the power orb system.
I don't think so, because I mean, obviously we know a little bit more about that because we've been here for a while. We've seen the updates going on. I feel like the power orb system has been, you know, slaved over for a while and has gone through multiple iterations, but it's one of those things as to where it's difficult to 100% say what's going to be a better system before actively testing it in a live environment like this, which is why I feel like, you know, we need to see more changes. Like this power orbs, yeah, that's fine and everything, but let's get some different things in there. The problem with that is that once you make a change to a massive core game system, there's going to be so many people that immediately are like, I don't know how to play the game anymore. You changed this. What's going on? Why did you do this? I hate you. Fuck you guys. I'm leaving. You know, we're going to get people like that.
But it's not even so much the change is bad as much as I feel like there's a lot of we're changing things, we're adding new mechanics, and then like not considering the implications on how that's going to affect balance.
Yeah.
Like there's it continually just like it feels like we've got systems that were built for a game that is not the game that we're playing with right now.
Yeah. That's
and like we're doing massive overhauls. Like, okay, we're changing from passive power to
active
this
power.
new active power system. But then we're not actually going to tweak any of the other systems that interact with power.
Yeah.
So like one of the big things we keep saying is like power ties are now a thing that actually happens regularly. Well, I mean, not like regularly, but like, you know, more often. Like it's possible for it to happen relatively regularly because power is gotten in like concrete chunks instead of, you know, in a tick over time kind of way. And so like all of a sudden power ties are a problem. All of a sudden, the fact that some creatures move and other creatures don't is a massive balance issue.
Yeah.
The fact that some characters can be stealth and lose their stealth by channeling a power orb, or don't lose their stealth by channeling a power orb, is a problem that has to be addressed. And it's like, we just we got power orbs without actually a mind to, how does this affect the game as a whole?
How does this affect all of the systems rather than just player-based systems? Because I think that's what they were thinking about the most, was how does the passive power system feel for players? Does it feel pretty garbage? The answer was almost equivocally, yes, it feels like it's stifling competitive strategy. It feels like the only real possible strategies for the game was wait until something needs to happen, or wait until a push happens and then try and get an advantage that way. That's what passive power felt like it was doing. Either that or go try and backcap something. But you also have to think that this was around the time when we didn't have Mistforge. We didn't have Siren Strand. We only had what was then Canyon, what is now Ghost Reef to play on. That was it. So passive power was being tested on a field where backcapping couldn't happen, was being tested on a field where rotations were only 1 or 2 rotations, and that was it. Obviously it felt stifling to the strategy of the game. And so they said, okay, passive power is a bad thing. Let's try and find out what unstifles that, what has more strategy involved for players. Well, Power Orbs does, because now you actually have to actively grab them and defend them and go and try and contest enemy ones and whatnot, and it adds so many more strategy elements in it than passive does. But that's all they were thinking about, was how does it feel for the player, the person playing the hero? How does it feel for heroes? But they didn't think, how does this actively change how creatures are summoned, how rotations on the map are handled, and how the maps themselves affect which points are worth it to go ahead and contest. Nowadays on Ghost Reef, we see the only points that are generally worth it to legitimately contest is caverns, because it's easy to get in, pull it off of the point for a little bit, and immediately jump out. You could do that with Intake 2, but now you also have to go through the entire center point of the map into a very open wide area over here, that most people are sitting on in some cases, and run out. On Sanctum Falls, it's really only worth it to go to Gardens or Bell, because Bell is pretty far out of the way. You can contest that really easy, and of course you can cliff game creatures pretty simply, but that's what it is. It's causing people to really do specific things.
And creature cliff gaming.
Yeah, hashtag end creature cliff gaming, but it's creating a very specific creature-based and map-based rotations based on these power orbs. And so in turn it definitely opened up the strategy involved on the map. It definitely allowed more strategy to happen, but it's creating these habits that are in turn stifling strategic complexity. So I don't know if it's a good thing that they did this. I would say it is compared to the old system, and we're going to see issues with it. It's going to happen. There's always going to be problems with every system, no matter what.
We've been seeing issues with it forever.
Oh yeah, and the thing is this is always going to be an argument from the competitive side. This is always going to be an issue with the competitive community, is that no matter what system's going to be in place, there's always going to be a lack of complexity that people want in the game. They've been saying it for a while. People on Warpath Gaming specifically have said it for a little while, that the game just doesn't feel like it's complex strategy-wise enough, that there isn't enough micromanaging going on, that there isn't enough, competitive feel to the game, whereas a lot of other people have disagreed with that statement. People have said, on Renegades have said, no, there's a good amount of complexity, and we're seeing it now with more teams popping back into the competitive scene, with Siren Strand strategies changing. It used to be fight over ship, now it's please stop touching ship. We've seen it change on Ghost Reef from we need to defend the intake to we need to defend from cavern and rotate from cavern. We've seen it on Mistforge or Sanctum being we need to defend altar to we need to defend river. Things are changing. It is happening. But I think with every system, every single system that they're going to put in place, power-wise, creatures-wise, anything, we're going to see people complain over, it's stifling this or it's stifling that. This is forcing me to do this. This is forcing me to do that. But in almost every case, that's what it's intended to do. Power orbs are intended to make us have to deal with these things, to deal with backcapping, to deal with that. The only problem is how easy it is. So, to kind of wrap us up here, because we are getting to the end of this discussion,
I just wanted to be put on record that I made a timer when Shmoo started talking. Shmoo just talked uninterrupted for 6 minutes and 43 seconds.
Go fuck yourself. In
I'm just over
total,
here checking my email.
yeah, right. I think what really is going to be seen is that we do need to do updates to the creatures. There needs to be something done
absolutely.
to stop them from killing themselves. You know, Cerberuses and Bloomers saying, "Hey, let's dodge to the side." And off the map. We need to stop the Cerberuses from... I remember I was playing Beckett on Sanctum Falls. I was using the rocks and jetpacked trying to go over towards Bell. Cyclops saw me and jumped directly off the map. You know,
so
like, they obviously need to change that. They need to get rid of Creature Cliff Gaming entirely. They need to be, you know, either A, locked to the position on the Power Orb, or B, they need to do a system where if they get knocked off, they immediately teleport back up, or they take a little damage and teleport back up, whatever, that needs to happen. And then they need to balance creatures based on whether they move off the point or not. You know, if a Cyclops is going to move off of the Power Orb, it needs to have a little bit more there. It needs to be able to do a little bit more. So, if it moves off the point, it needs to stop them from being able to take the orb in some way. It should be able to knock them off of the orb, or interrupt them or something. You know, if they're going to move off of it, it should defend the orb, not just attack the person.
Which they can, but right now it doesn't feel like they do.
No,
and that's the issue.
That's the problem. That really is the problem.
I think there's a slight miscommunication, because even though the Drakes and the adult Bloomers can't get technically knocked off of the orb, if you're standing on the orb, you still are stopping their channel technically. I just want that to be notified. But I don't think that you can channel the orb because they're still technically... Well, or I don't think you can channel capture the orb because they're still technically on it.
Well, and the problem is not that, like... The problem is not that they prevent you from channeling it. The problem is you have to channel it while standing next to an enemy that can murder you. Like, the problem is, like, the Drake will kill you. Whereas, like, the Cerberus, you can be like, "Hey, Cerberus, go over here. Okay, now I'm going to take your orb while you're distracted."
Yeah.
You can't distract the Bloomer.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But that's going to be about it for us, guys. We've done quite a bit of discussion on this topic, as well as bringing lovely new ideas to the forefront. I honestly love doing shows like this, because it, I feel, gives more of an actual communication about the game than just saying, okay, so this thing happened recently, how do we feel about that? So if you guys have any ideas for any topics you want us to cover or discuss on, or if you want to add your own voice to the topic outside of just during the shows, like we've been seeing people doing, like Gatto Attack in the chat here, feel free to send us an email at the bullrush@ggunleashed.com email, or at any of our emails at ggunleashed. That's noirbot@ggunleashed, schmoolydorf@ggunleashed, or twolfman@ggunleashed. Follow us at Twitter. That's at schmoolydorf, at twolfman, at noirbot. You can DM us there if you want to say, hey, I'd really like to hear you guys talk about this there on Bullrush or whatever. I totally do that. We'd appreciate it. You can even do it at the @GGUnleashed Twitter as well. That's @GG_Unleashed on Twitter. And you could do all that as well, just to kind of keep up with what we're doing. And say, oh, Schmoogledorf is streaming now. Finally, it's been forever. Or, hey, look, GG Unleashed is creating this new thing. Like, the Hero Builder just got updated. Thank you, Perry. We created the new guide system. Coughing, coming, cough. Things that are going to, things like that. Feel free to follow us at those points. And if you ever want to watch any of our previous shows, or you want to share this out to the devs, or you want to share this to your friends, like, hey, look what these guys said. All of our previous shows are going to be here, highlighted on Twitch on our channel, and also uploaded to YouTube at GG. That's youtube.com/GGUnleashed, as Wolfie put into the chat there. But that is going to be it for us, guys. In weeks in the future, some of us are going to stick around after the show and do some video gaming of the actual game. We're going to play it. It's going to be awesome, instead of us just talking about it. But for this week, we're going to kind of call it here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, we'll see you next time.
Later.
Bye.